is Zach Elliott. Feel free to argue. And we're definitely having some of those drowning in bullshit kind of moments lately. Just because I feel like I've had just about all I can handle on two subjects, because almost every time I hear anything about either of them, it makes me angrier. So let's talk about both of these things kind of narrowly. I'm going to do two videos. I think each one of these deserves its own video. Not that there aren't links between the two things. So what are they? I think the first one is the Julian Assange affair and WikiLeaks. And the second one is the climate talks down in Cancun. Let's use this one to talk about the Cancun talks. And let's talk about one very specific aspect of it, which is us ceding the future of the world to China. This is a pretty large claim. Why do I feel this way? Well, as you look strategically at what's happening at the talks, China came here in a very different disposition than they came last time. They were at points, you know, as obstructionist as the United States the last time around. They were especially resistant to a verification regime that would strictly verify the amount of carbon that their industry was putting into the air. So in the interim, apparently, they've done a lot of examination. They've talked with their scientists. They've tried to, you know, figure out what it means to have this verified, and now they've come back and they're all on board with it. And this has surprised a lot of people. And also surprising to a lot of people is China's willingness to talk about, you know, hard limits and make serious commitments to reducing its carbon emissions. Now, why is this important? Well, there was another piece of information that I got this morning, which I found terribly interesting. And I think this is why even people who don't necessarily believe in man-made climate change should really be concerned about strategically what's going on at this point. Because the first thing you have to realize that no matter how strongly you believe that man-made climate change doesn't exist, that you are in a significant minority. There is virtually no country on earth who shares the United States' mixed feelings about whether or not this is actually the case. So whether or not you're right, you have to realize that the world is preparing to reorder everything about the global economy, assuming that this is true. Assuming that, you know, man-made climate change is an existent thing. So, once again, I mean, I really have to stress at this point, this has nothing to do with whether or not your claims are true or not. This will occur because a majority of countries around the world feel this way. You know, that's their way of looking at things. So, when you look at China's approach at this point, you can see what they're clearly setting up to do an end run around us. I mean, one of the most amazing pieces of information I heard this morning had to do with China spending more in the first quarter of 2010 on renewable energy and producing renewable energy materials than the rest of the world put together. So, now you can start to see the shape of the future. You can see the kind of predictions that I've been making all along on my channel, and how China is already working to make those things become a reality. See, I've argued for quite a while, and on numerous videos on this channel, that going forward, the United States is going to increasingly be viewed by the rest of the world as the primary cause of global climate change. And to the extent that people feel impacted, they're going to blame us. And a lot of it has to do with our obstructionism and our denial and etc. And of course, our rampant consumption. So because of all these factors, I mean, I think you can see that China is working to position itself so that it doesn't get lumped in the same boat with us, and it can in fact be shown to be the more moral alternative to the United States. Yeah. And they're going to pull it off. Look forward a year to, I mean, these talks are going to fall apart. If anything comes out of it, it's just going to be an insanely weak resolution like in Copenhagen. But China is continuing to strengthen its hand. It's an authoritarian government. It doesn't need to ask permission from its people to do things. It's decided that this is the wave of the future, or rather, it has seen that it is going to be the wave of the future. And it's decided to try to capitalize on that in every conceivable way. They're certainly going to triumph, like, monetarily, because they're developing these technologies, and they're going to kick our ass because they can produce them probably a lot more effectively, efficiently, and certainly in greater quantities than we could. Because, of course, we've been emasculating our manufacturing sector, aside from building weaponry. So, when you add all these things together, you can see that China is really taking advantage of this situation in the world. They're capitalizing it, they're working on becoming a global leader, they're working on calling us out on our obstructionism, because like a year from now, China's going to be even further ahead of us. They're going to be better able to, like, talk to the rest of the world and show them, look, you know, this is us putting our money where our mouth is. This is us spending as much on this as the rest of all of you do. This is us, you know, showing up, ready to deal, and those are the Americans who are doing nothing, who are obstructionists, who are trying to, like, destroy the world. And the world will believe them. Dawn of the new Chinese century. And at that point, you know, the only way in which we're going to be respected anymore is as a military power. We will have lost the moral battle, the battle for respect. After that, you know, it's certainly not going to take long after everybody sees that kind of moral transition for the United States dollar to no longer be the reserve currency for the world. Once we free float, we fall. So, this is why, you know, whether you believe in it or not, you've got to see that these patterns are evolving. You've got to look to see where these things are going to lead to. Now, I happen to believe in climate change, so I think there's a whole lot more at stake here than just U.S. competitiveness. I think it has to do with, like, the future of the, you know, a lot of people to be able to live at least where they, you know, are living now, close to the water. And, you know, I think deserts are expanding, and I think there are a lot of observable problems. But at the very least, I think just about everybody has to admit that even if we in this country are conflicted, the rest of the world is not. And sooner or later, you know, if they continue with this perception, whether it is true or not, there are going to be consequences for us. And I think we can start to see those things shaping up right now, if you've got any desire to see that sort of stuff. Anyway, it's been Zach Ellett, and you can certainly feel free to argue.